Good morning, America, and breaking overnight. After a 3-hour delay, the ceasefire is officially underway. 15 months into the war in Gaza, the bombing is now on hold as families and the world anxiously await the hostage and prisoner exchange and trucks full of desperately needed aid prepare to enter Gaza. We have team coverage on the ground this morning.
TikTok goes dark. The social media company shutting down the app in advance of the U.S. ban. Users bidding tearful goodbyes to the app, loved by more than 170 million people in the U.S. What content creators who make their livings on TikTok are saying, and how the new Trump administration could intervene.
Deep freeze. Nearly 70 million Americans waking up to weather alerts from North Carolina to Maine. With sub-zero wind chills from the Midwest to the East Coast, the snow, ice, and dangerous winds in the forecast as the SoCal fires brace for more extreme winds.
That big chill forcing Donald Trump's second inauguration indoors, what we expect from his address to the nation tomorrow, and his plans for deportation raids on day 2 of his new administration.
New bird flu concerns centering on a Georgia poultry farm. Operations in the area now on quarantine. We have the latest from the CDC, what you need to know.
Road to the Super Bowl.
Still going, Morton, pick 6!
The Commanders slaying the Lions in an upset, and the Chiefs.
Mahomes steps up, throws, and he got it! Touchdown, Kelsey!
One step closer to a historic three-peat. And Coco Gauff battles back.
Oh, it's incredible.
Moving on to the semis of the Australian Open. We have all the action on the court and the gridiron.
Live from ABC News in New York, this is Good Morning America.
Good morning, America. Happy Sunday to you on this very busy morning. So we're going to get right to the breaking news that we're following from overnight and this morning, including TikTok, the app going dark last night. ByteDance, the Chinese company that owns the app, shutting it and its other apps down before the midnight Eastern time deadline.
And take a look at what you will see right now in app stores. Simply unavailable. Many waking up this morning trying to open the app already installed on your phone. That doesn't work either. More than 170 million Americans without access. We're going to go take a close look at all of this right here this morning.
Yeah, but we do begin in the Middle East, where the long-awaited ceasefire went into effect after a 3-hour delay. Overnight, Israelis taking to the streets anticipating the release of 3 hostages. This is part of the first phase here, 15 months after the Hamas terror attack. The fighting has stopped for now as trucks of desperately needed aid are at the Egypt border and expected to cross into Gaza. We have team coverage in the region, and we begin with ABC News chief foreign correspondent Ian Pannell in Tel Aviv. Ian, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Rich. Good morning, everyone. Finally, some good news to report from this region. A historic moment for Israel and Gaza. After 50 months, the guns finally falling silent today. 3 of the hostages expected to be released later, all young women, and scores of Palestinian prisoners are going to be returned home. Again, mostly women. There's caution, of course, on both sides about how long this will last, but for now at least, some relief.
This morning, after 15 months of war, a long-awaited ceasefire in Gaza finally underway. Less than an hour before it was set to begin, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announcing no pause in the bombing would happen until Hamas shared the names of the hostages being released today. Those first 3 names finally sent nearly 2 hours after the ceasefire was due to start. 3 women, Romi Gonen, Emily Damari and Doron Steinbecker, will be released later today in exchange for scores of Palestinian prisoners. They're the first of 33 hostages to be released in the next 6 weeks, including 2 Americans, Segi Dekelchen and Keith Siegel. The ceasefire finally beginning almost 3 hours later than planned. During that delay, Israel launching yet more strikes, killing at least 13 people and wounding more than 30, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. More than 46,000 killed and over 100,000 injured throughout the 15-month-long war, according to the health ministry. Israel launching a devastating campaign in response to the October 7th, 2023 massacre by Hamas, who killed 1,200 people and kidnapped more than 250.
And in a major sign of relief for Gaza, aid trucks now starting to roll across the border.
Despite the death and devastation, Gazans celebrating on the streets. Groups gathering together, waving flags and chanting. 90% of the population displaced throughout this war, and this morning they're finally allowed to return to what's left of their homes.
Well, a reminder that this is just phase one of a three-phase deal. Negotiations are going to start soon with the incoming Trump administration, Qatar, Egypt and Hamas about the release of all the hostages, alive or dead, and what the future government of Gaza looks like. And despite the hopes today, there will be celebrations in some quarters, this remains fragile, with a huge amount of work left to do and concerns that today's ceasefire may only be temporary. Janae?
Incredibly delicate, and as you said, the first of three stages. Ian, thank you so much. And for more now on that hostage-prisoner exchange, Tom Sufi Burridge is in Israel on the edge of the West Bank. And Tom, we've been saying Israelis taking to the street as they're awaiting the release of those three young women held hostage for more than a year now.
Yeah, good morning, Janae. This vast, highly fortified Israeli prison on the edge of the West Bank is a key location for this hostage and prisoner exchange because many of the Palestinian detainees who should be freed as part of the deal are expected to be moved here and then released. Now, it's really important to note that the release of a total of 33 Israeli hostages will be phased throughout the next 6 weeks. So today, once Hamas releases those first 3 Israeli female hostages, Israel should release around 90 Palestinian women and young men, many of whom are being held by Israel without charge. Now, it's a complex agreement. So first, for each of the first 5 weeks, Hamas is expected to release 3 or 4 hostages. In the 6th week, Hamas should return 14 hostages to Israel, including the bodies, sadly, of some dead hostages. Now, as part of the 6-week deal, Hamas is due to release several female Israeli soldiers, and in return, Israel is expected to release Palestinian men who have been convicted of serious terrorism offenses. So this exchange is controversial in Israel. And yes, as Ian mentioned, this is only phase 1. There will need to be an agreement for a permanent truce in Gaza if a further 65 Israeli hostages, including another American who we believe is still alive, are to be released beyond this initial agreement. Gio?
And we will be watching this all day long here on ABC. Tom, thank you for your reporting. Back home now to the breaking news overnight. The social media app TikTok going dark as a U.S. ban goes into effect. ABC's Elizabeth Schulze is in Washington. Elizabeth, you've been following all of this. Good morning to you.
Hey, good morning, Gio. Well, millions of Americans are waking up this morning to a TikTok app where you can't scroll or post. Instead, all you see is a message that it's unavailable. TikTok is apologizing to users that the app went dark as it now looks to President-elect Trump to turn the lights back on.
This morning, TikTok is shut down for 170 million U.S. users as a landmark ban on the app takes effect. Late Saturday, this message appearing on screens, saying a law banning TikTok has been enacted in the U.S. Unfortunately, that means you can't use TikTok for now. We are fortunate that President Trump has indicated he will work with us on a solution. Stay tuned. TikTok also removed from Apple and Google's app stores.
I'm just thankful and honored that we got the time together that we did.
In the hours leading up to the ban, celebrities, major American companies,
and with that, the TikTok era comes to an end.
And content creators rallying around the hashtag Farewell TikTok.
This is like the 3rd or 4th time we've had to make these goodbye TikTok videos.
But those goodbyes could be short-lived. President-elect Donald Trump telling ABC's Rachel Scott he will most likely put the ban on hold for 90 days once he takes office, saying, "I'll do that until we figure something out." TikTok's CEO, who will be in a prime seat at Trump's inauguration Monday, is pinning his hopes on the future president, who back in 2020 wanted the app outlawed.
I want to thank President Trump for his commitment to work with us.
Under the law, Trump's options are limited. He could try to broker a deal for TikTok to cut ties with its Chinese parent company ByteDance and hope that China's government signs off. The law says TikTok's Chinese ownership is a national security threat. It passed in Congress with broad bipartisan support and was unanimously upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court.
Letting their local representatives know what TikTok means to them.
Mama 4, Rebby Hardy, says she found financial success and a sense of community posting viral videos of her family on TikTok.
It gave me financial freedom, independence, and it changed my career.
She told her 2.4 million followers to find her on Instagram and YouTube, but worries about the payoff.
The difference between a video posted on TikTok that generated about $2,000 in revenue And looking on Instagram and that same video, I made $3 from it.
Now, TikTok wasn't forced to shut itself down under the law, but the company claims it didn't have enough explicit reassurance from the Biden administration that tech companies like Apple, Google, and Oracle that provide services to TikTok wouldn't face massive fines when the law took effect today. The White House called TikTok's choice to shut down a stunt, Gio.
And Elizabeth, I think a lot of people are surprised to know that this company owns other apps, not just TikTok.
Exactly, and those apps also not available, including apps like Lemonade and CapCut. Those are also owned by TikTok's parent company, ByteDance. CapCut's a video editing platform that's popular for making reels. Apple this morning says they are not available for downloads or updates under the law that's now in effect. Gio.
Yeah, I tried to open CapCut also. It also doesn't let you in. All right, Elizabeth, thank you so much. And Elizabeth, we'll be back in our next half hour with ABC News contributor and social media expert Mike Muse with more on what this ban could mean to users and content creators. Janae?
I'm sorry that you were impacted by it, Gio. No. Now to the president-elect. Trump arriving in the DMV area last night as he prepares to be sworn into his second term in office. The ceremony will now take place indoors due to those frigid temperatures along the East Coast. And we're learning that President-elect Trump appears to be focusing on a central campaign issue of immigration when he takes office. As sources tell us, raids could begin as soon as Tuesday. Let's get more now from our White House correspondent, Mary Alice Parks. Good morning to you, Mary Alice.
Good morning, Janae. President-elect Trump is waking up right across the street here from the White House at Blair House. It's the president's formal guest house. And yes, he says that he has big plans, especially on immigration, for his first day in office. Overnight, President-elect Donald Trump landing back in the nation's capital ahead of his inauguration, kicking off the weekend with fireworks and a private event at his golf club in Virginia. On his first day in office tomorrow, Trump promising to sign a series of executive actions, telling our Rachel Scott some will be aimed at rolling back President Biden's emission and pollution standards for cars. Others will be focused on immigration. Cities, especially in blue states, bracing for immigration raids to ramp up and start as early as this week.
There's going to be a big raid all across the country. Chicago is just one of many places.
Trump's incoming border czar, Tom Homan, telling ABC News they are reviewing plans in Chicago and elsewhere, and that the focus will be to seek out those undocumented immigrants who are considered a public safety threat and a national security threat. In the nation's capital, the final preparations for the inauguration. A new platform quickly being built inside the Capitol Rotunda after Trump's decision to move the swearing-in ceremony indoors because of the cold. 4 years ago, the inside of the Capitol was still being restored following the January 6th riot. The head of the D.C. National Guard telling me they learned a lot of lessons from that attack and are ready for this year's inauguration. Nearly 8,000 National Guard troops from 40 states already in the nation's capital supporting local police. One of the guardsmen here to ensure a peaceful transfer of power, Philadelphia's Sergeant Breeze, an immigrant from Liberia, who tells me he joined the National Guard to help get citizenship 3 years ago, and that being on this mission is a great honor.
I'll say what my father said when he brought us over here. This country is one of the best countries you can be in. There's possibilities for everybody. I'm a sergeant. I'm leading my troops. It's a great opportunity, man.
And this is, of course, President Biden's last full day in office, and he's squeezing in one final trip. He's headed to Charleston, South Carolina. He has a speech to mark Martin Luther King Jr. Day. He still credits South Carolina with helping to get him to the White House. Whip.
All right, Mary Alice Parks, thanks so much. Let's bring in our chief Washington correspondent, Jonathan Karl, who'll be hosting This Week later on this morning. John, good morning. It's great to see you. So we know the inauguration is tomorrow. I'll be joining you there in D.C. with the team for that. Day one for the new Trump administration. What more are you learning about his first moves and this immigration crackdown?
Oh, wait. The president came to town with a whole bunch of executive orders ready to be signed. This will be a very busy first day for the president. Certainly, border security and deportations are at the top of his list. He campaigned on those issues. Those will be among the executive orders he signs. And yes, his border czar, Tom Homan, says that they are looking at preparing to do raids and deportations almost immediately after Trump takes office. And they'll focus, it's important to say, he says they will focus immediately on those who are in the United States illegally and have committed crimes.
Yep, I know we're waiting to hear more details, but that is expected in the coming week. I want to ask you about your interview with Steve Bannon that will air this morning on This Week. Always some fireworks in those conversations you've had with him in the past. So what does he say about the tone of Trump's inaugural address and the tech bosses that will be in attendance there?
This was a fascinating conversation, and if you remember the last time I spoke to him, he was on his way to prison. So this is a guy who spent 4 months of the campaign in prison, released right before the election. He was also an architect of that American carnage speech that Trump gave his first inaugural. He says that this one's going to be a different tone, more towards unifying the country, something I've really never heard Steve Bannon talk much about. But that's what he said, and he had some interesting, fascinating comments about those tech billionaires that'll be there as Donald Trump's guests when he is sworn in tomorrow. He says that they are there not because Trump wants, Trump is appealing to them. They're there because they are effectively surrendering to Donald Trump.
It'll be a fascinating inauguration, that's for sure. John Carl, we appreciate it as always. And tune into This Week later this morning for more on John's interview with Steve Bannon. And he'll also speak with the father and stepmother of an Israeli-American hostage who may be freed soon as part of that ceasefire agreement. That's all coming up on This Week. Janae?
All right, we're turning now to the new concern about bird flu. The virus now detected in a commercial poultry operation in Georgia. And you may not know it, but poultry is that state's biggest industry. Faith Abube joins us live. Faith, good morning to you. This is not only a health concern, but economic as well.
That's right, Janae. Good morning to you. Officials here racing to contain any further spread of the virus. Out of an abundance of caution, they have suspended poultry sales across the state until further notice. This specifically affects sales at auction houses and flea markets. Shoppers can't still buy chicken at the grocery store. Meantime, teams are working to depopulate, clean, and disinfect the commercial operation where the virus was confirmed. The site is about 2 hours outside Atlanta and has 45,000 chickens. Other commercial operations within a 6-mile radius are under quarantine. Officials stress that the virus did not make it into the food supply chain, but there are still urgent concerns. For Georgia, this is the first confirmed bird flu case in a commercial operation during this nationwide outbreak. Several states already affected. Nearly 2 weeks ago, a Louisiana man became the first related death in the U.S. Now, the concerns here for officials in Georgia is not just the health aspect, but they also say it poses a serious threat to the first and largest industry here in Georgia, the agriculture industry, which means thousands of people and their livelihoods are hanging in the balance. Janae.
And we are certainly seeing how this can expand. Faith, thank you for that.
Hey, let's go to the NFL now. Divisional playoffs in full swing. The Chiefs and Commanders moving on after yesterday's games, and 2 big games are on tap today. Here's Alex Brochet.
Overnight, a major upset in the Motor City. The Washington Commanders, led by Rookie of the Year candidate Jaden Daniels, taking down the #1 seed Detroit Lions.
Touchdown, Washington, and they're in front.
Both teams having historic runs. Take a look at this touchdown grab by Lions tight end Sam Laporta.
He caught it! Touchdown, Laporta!
The one-handed snag giving the Lions the lead in the second quarter.
Washington!
Washington answering right back with a 58-yard catch and run from Terry McLaurin.
It's intercepted, picked off by Quan Morton.
In the very next series, this backbreaker, a pick 6 by the Commanders, and it would only get worse from there. Washington running away with this one and headed to the NFC Championship for the first time in 33 years.
I love my team. I'm confident in my team, so we'll roll with the next game and, we'll focus on that opponent.
And over at a fired-up Arrowhead Stadium.
The tackle still going. Travis Kelce down near the 6.
The Chiefs now headed back to their 7th straight AFC Championship, knocking off the Houston Texans.
Mahomes steps up, throws, and he got it. Touchdown, Kelce.
The dynamic duo of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce putting on a show in front of the home crowd, who braved temperatures in the low 20s. Taylor Swift and WNBA star Caitlin Clark both in attendance. 23-14 the final, giving head coach Andy Reid his 300th career win.
And we're getting set for another round of Gridiron Gyms today. First, the LA Rams, fresh off a huge wild card win, will take on Saquon Barkley and the Eagles in Philadelphia. And then later, a clash of MVP contenders. Quarterback Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens taking on Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Conditions in both games expected to be in the 20s. Guys.
All right, a lot of exciting stuff. Yeah.
Herm called it.
Herm called it. And coming up on GMA, our friend Herm Edwards is back with today's big matchups in the NFL playoffs.
Yes, plus the fallout from the TikTok ban, what it will mean for content creators, and are other Chinese-owned apps and sites in jeopardy.
And a great moment of recovery from the ruins of a Los Angeles home. We'll be right back. More GMA after this. Good morning, America. Let's take a look at some of the top stories that we're following on this Sunday morning. Happening right now after a tense delay, a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Gaza is in effect. 3 hostages and Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails will be exchanged in the first phase of the deal.
Also, right now, fire crews are bracing for extreme winds coming this week as they continue to fight the fires out in California. More than a week after the Eaton and Palisades fires broke out in the Los Angeles area, firefighters are making major progress. The Eaton fire now 73% contained, while the Palisades fire is now 43% contained. Both blazes have left at least 27 people dead, more than a dozen others still missing.
And American tennis star Coco Gauff is in the quarterfinals at the Australian Open. The 20-year-old is going for her second Grand Slam title after defeating Switzerland on Saturday. You can watch the Australian Open round of 16 tonight on ESPN2 and ESPN+.
Coco, she's on a roll.
She sure is.
Yeah. All right, let's begin this half hour with the fallout from the TikTok ban, the app, and others owned by the Chinese company ByteDance going dark overnight. Let's take a deeper look into all of this and what's next for the more than 100 million U.S. users. Content creators and more impacted by this. Let's go back to Elizabeth Schulze, who is joining us once again, and ABC News contributor Mike Muse, a Google Tech Policy Fellow, an expert on all things. Mike Muse, it's great to have you, along with Elizabeth. Mike, let's start with you, though. Do you think that these other social media apps that many are flocking to, we were talking about Red Note and others, could actually become as popular as TikTok?
Well, first, good morning, everyone. And Elizabeth and I are twinning right now. So good morning, Elizabeth. They absolutely can be as popular, but that's such a great question because it really goes to the fundamental question of, does Congress understand technology? And what exactly is Congress attempting to do with this ban? Because of the fact that we're going to start seeing more tech applications and social media applications coming to the forefront, because one thing we know about American users is they love to be early adopters on social media apps in order to build their followers quicker and to gain more of a massive following when you're first in. And so the American government has got to come clear on what is it they're trying to regulate. Is it content moderation? Is it the fear of having our foreign adversaries be involved in content manipulation? Well, we've already seen that with our foreign adversaries on Twitter, now known as X, as well as on Facebook. And so for me, the law was never really clear on what the U.S. was intending to do.
Elizabeth, let's turn to you because there are so many content creators right now who are really making a living on TikTok. Do we have any idea what will happen to them? We're talking about sponsorships, all of that. They're even their customers because we have small businesses that are there too.
No question, Gio. And big picture, TikTok is a contributor to the overall American economy. The company says it adds about $15 billion to small business revenue per year. It supports more than 200,000 jobs. A lot of the content creators on the platform do already have accounts on some of the U.S. competitors that exist out there already. So think of Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, Snapchat Spotlight. Those sponsorships that those content creators have will also need to find a new home if TikTok stays banned. And analysts think that about $8 billion in those advertising revenues on TikTok would need to move to other platforms. Almost half of that, guys, could end up going over to Meta-owned platforms. So Meta could emerge as a big winner here. One reality, though, about TikTok is that algorithm has really kept users hooked on the platform for longer than some of those competitors. So far, they haven't really been able to replicate that. And that has really made it coveted, not just among advertisers, but also among those businesses really looking at that younger targeted demographic.
Those are really great points that you just made, Elizabeth. And Mike, I want to bring you back in. I'm sad that you aren't matching with me, my friend. So when you were talking before about the manipulation with the algorithm and things like that, some could say that that's why we are seeing this law extend to Chinese-owned social media apps beyond TikTok, but not to those commerce sites like Shein and Temu that we see that are so popular. But the question I want to ask you, Mike, is why then don't we have these American-owned apps or things that can compete or that can bring in the revenue? And why are people now turning to Red Note, say, versus an American version of that? Why don't we have that as an option?
Those are all great questions that you asked, Janae. And in particular, TikTok's attorney at the Supreme Court was asking that exact same question when he said that this law does not have an inclusionary law to include those e-commerce sites exactly that you just mentioned. And for me, Janae, if national security is the real crux of this, why is President Biden, through his press secretary, saying that they will not enforce any of the regulatory punishment that would happen to app stores like the Google Play Store if they were to continue using TikTok? Also, too, if national security is such a biggest threat, why is President Trump's income administration signaling that they're willing to work with TikTok if it was actually national security, which leads us today to believe that is politics in play or is national security into play, which is what Elizabeth and you are actually saying in terms of no U.S. company as of now has found the stickiness that the algorithm that TikTok has that makes American users want to stay in there so long. Instagram Live has that moment and Reels does, but it doesn't have that hold on it the way that TikTok does because it's organic content recommendation, whereas the other social media apps have so many products and tools that Americans have to use in order to gain more followers, in order to be promoted in the app, is what frustrates so many American users. So, Janae, that is the $1 million or $1 billion question that needs to be asked in terms of how to keep American users more sticky in the platforms.
All right. Well, Trump promised to address this directly after his inauguration tomorrow, so we'll see what happens this week. Mike Muse, Elizabeth Schulze, thank you so much for your insight this morning here.
Now in the NFL playoffs, two teams one step closer to the Super Bowl. Let's go ahead and bring in Coach Herm Edwards. He was here yesterday in studio with us. Now he's back in Bristol.
He had enough.
We already miss you. You got sick of us. That's all right. But listen, when we talked to you yesterday, you called it. You said Jaden Daniels was going to show up and show out. He did. You said Travis Kelce was going to show up and show out. He did. Give us your take.
Well, for some reason I know a little bit about football, but you can't say enough about the Washington Commanders. Think about their season last year before they acquired Jaden Daniels. They won 4 games, and now they see themselves going on the road twice in playoff competition and winning against 2 good quarterbacks. And it was always not only Jaden Daniels, but their defense. They took the ball away 5 times, and when you do that, you generally can't win a game. And that showed up yesterday with the Washington Commanders in the fact that they ran the ball, they threw the ball, and the moment is not too big for Jaden Daniels. I mean, he loves these situations. And when you look at him, he's chasing history in the National Football League. No rookie quarterback has ever started in the Super Bowl, and he understands that.
Wow. All right, Coach, so let's talk about today's matchups. Let's start with the late game. 2 quarterbacks who are battling it out for MVP, and they're seeking their first Super Bowl title, the Ravens at the Bills. So how do you see this game going?
Oh, boy. The Ravens are playing really good, especially when they started implementing this 2 tight end package of Andrews and Likely along with Henry. You got a problem, and Lamar Jackson obviously is the catalyst of all this. He is playing at a different level. I like the way the Ravens have been playing the last month. Now, they got to go to Buffalo. Josh Allen is there. He understands this is a big game between Lamar Jackson and himself. And basically, you know, Lamar Jackson has more weapons than the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen has Cook. Shakir is one of his receivers. Kincaid is another guy. But This is going to be a tough game for the Buffalo Bills at home, playing against a hot Raven football team. But you can never count Josh Allen out. He does everything. He throws it. He runs around. He's a runner. Look at this throw right here. Who can do that? Nobody except Josh Allen. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch.
All right, we don't have much time left on this one. Eagles or Rams here? What do the Eagles have to do?
Well, the Eagles just have to be the Eagles. Just do what you do. Saquon Barkley, obviously. And throw some passes to A.J. Brown so he doesn't read the book on the sideline. Wear him out some. Yeah, like that. Just throw the ball to A.J. Brown so he doesn't read books. But the Eagles have the #1 defense in the National Football League. And this is a game the Eagles should win. They're playing at home. They're a good football team. This is a game they must win.
All right, Coach, we appreciate you. Good to see you 2 days in a row. Lucky us. We'll be right back.
All right, we are back now on GMA with an inspiring story. Ohio State facing off against Notre Dame in the College Football National Championship for the first time in more than a decade. And while all eyes will be on the teams, you'll also want to watch the cymbal player in the great OSU band. Will Reeve has the comeback story of the season.
This is the moment that sealed Ohio State's win, sending the Buckeyes to the College Football Playoff National Championship game. Joining the players, a group synonymous with college football, the Ohio State Band, known as the best damn band in the land. Grayson Nemi is playing cymbals in the band, but before his sophomore year began, he got life-altering news.
You hear that word, cancer. What do you remember thinking and feeling?
I remember going home that night and it kind of hit me a second time that, I was going to need to go down to the cancer hospital to be doing things that, I would never have dreamed of having to do.
The Ohio native was diagnosed with stage 2 testicular cancer shortly after finishing his freshman year, quickly getting surgery and treatment at Ohio State's Comprehensive Cancer Center. Grayson stayed committed to making the band the following year.
Your final day of chemo is also your final day of tryouts. What happened on that day?
I was pretty fired up. I'm not letting this stop me on the second day. And so hearing my name called, I was ecstatic.
So it was back to 12 hours of band practice a week, plus a full course load, the side effects of his cancer treatment still lingering. Grayson is now cancer-free, ready for the final game of a season he'll never forget.
Every pregame is awesome. It doesn't matter how many people are watching. Being able to be a part of that tradition, you feel like you're part of something bigger, which is really cool.
For Good Morning America, Will Reeve, ABC News, New York.
Oh, what a beautiful story there. And you can watch the College Football National Championship between Ohio State and Notre Dame tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN.
Looking forward to that.
Now, with a very special moment of recovery from the Southern California wildfires, Will Gans is here with that story. Will, good morning.
Love this story, you guys. Kimmy and Graham Culp and their 3 kids are just one family of so many who lost everything in the Pacific Palisades fires. Graham telling us he only had 5 minutes to grab valuables and evacuate, and in the rush, he wasn't able to find the ring he gave to his wife Kimmy to celebrate their 20-year anniversary. Graham says it was the most sentimental item lost in the fire until the LAPD was able to escort him back into the neighborhood to snap photos for the insurance company. But when he was there, take a look.
Wow.
He was able to uncover it in the rubble, finding it with only 15 minutes of searching. Graham says it was an amazing moment of hope, and it didn't end there. He surprised his wife Kimmy with the ring at a restaurant, tasking one of the couple's 3 kids with filming her reaction. Graham says folks have been reaching out to ask how they can help the family. It was so incredible. She got the ring there in the restaurant, just burst into tears. People reaching out to ask how they can help the family, and he's been directing them instead to Strive, a learning facility providing academic and guidance resources to children and their families in the inner city communities of Los Angeles, paying that hope forward, you guys.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Just incredible.
We saw one of the firefighters on GMA, too, also found his wedding ring, too.
Unbelievable that it was able to withstand.
And, of course, for anybody who wants to help those impacted by the Southern California fires, you can learn about how you can do that, how you can contribute. You can just point the phone camera to the QR code right there on the screen. So many people giving, millions of dollars raised so far.
So many. And as we say goodbye here, your mom is here. Can we bring you on here?
My mom
as
is
we say
here.
goodbye?
She's
Come on,
like,
come on, hurry up.
She's like,
we're about to say bye. Walk
Thank
over.
you for starting your day with us. Here she is.
Hi, Mama.
Good week.